Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Relationship Podcast, brought you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Gloriann. Welcome to another relationship podcast. Hope your week has been going good, and I hope that it keeps going like that. In today's episode, I'll be talking about parents affecting your love life. The way they raise you, the way they treated you can affect you in your adult life and the things you do as well. We all know that being in a relationship is hard, and we learn how to treat people, and where we learn how to treat people starts with your parents. They show you how to interact and to talk to any person. If you were around, quote, a stable home, then you have a pretty well relationship with your parents, and you're going to find that as well in your partner. Our parents show us how to love, and our childhood experiences are the most influential. They were your first example. When we're young, we accept what our parents have shown us, and we repeat it, even though they're right or not. Let's say this example. When you were a kid, your parents always had your feelings in consideration, and whenever you were mad, they asked you how you were, and they listened to you. Then you're going to do the exact same thing with your partner, or if you saw that your parents were very passionate about each other, you show that as well. Simple things, something simple than hating people hugging you, is something that you learn from them. Let's say that they weren't really lovable with you, so they didn't hug you or they didn't kiss you. So let's say when you're older and a friend or your partner hugs you, you're like, I don't like this. No, please don't hug me. You feel just uncomfortable with that. That is because we model what our parents do and what we have seen them doing them and what we have seen doing as well. And since we see this type of conduct all our life, we just get used to it. Remember that when we're little, we don't really comprehend what's normal and what's not. We all have different kinds of normal if you really think about it. Let's say that your friend, their childhood, their parents gave them everything, and because they had the money, and he had a really good life. And then you were living in your house where your parents argue almost all the time, but you were still in a stable home, but your parents were just arguing all the time. And let's say this friend of yours goes to your house, and once she sees the argument or he sees the argument of your parents, she goes or he goes and looks at you like, is this normal? Are your parents getting divorced? And you're like, no, they're not getting divorced. It's pretty normal for them. And of course she tells you oh, my parents don't do this. So it's this kind of things that, of course, the different kinds of normal. That's an example of what I wanted to say. Another example is that your friend may have been raised in a home where they were abused, or his or her father hit their mother. They are going to think that that's normal, and they're going to repeat it. They're going to repeat that behavior, and that can affect them and you greatly. Because let's say that this friend that you have or this partner starts hitting you, and then you obviously don't know how to react. And we have seen in some circumstances that people stay there and they lose their lives, or they're just in a really toxic relationship. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that if you stay there or your friend stays there, that's what they're showing their kids. So they think that's a kind of normal as well. Another example is a person that lived in a home where their parents gave them affection and received hugs all the time. They're going to be that way. You know, when they see you, they're like really, oh my God, like a hug and a kiss. And they always tell you like, oh, I'm so proud of you. Oh my God. It's that type of relationship. It's that type of things that they have seen with their parents. The way your parents communicated plays a really big role as well on how you communicate with your friends, your family, and your partner. Either because you were raised, let's say that you were raised by a narcissist, then you tend to get that as a partner, and maybe you are a people pleaser and you stay in that toxic relationship. And it all starts on how your parents were with you. It all starts with mommy and daddy issues, and it all starts with your childhood and your mommy and daddy issues. How can this affect my relationship, you may ask? Well, we all have our daddy and mommy issues, as I said. We are the way we are because they were our first role models. However they express love towards each other or for you, however they express their feelings, and the way even they punished you and set boundaries has either helped you in your adult life or has just been a really big mess in your adult life. That's what I'm trying to say. I have this friend that her parents were really strict. And when I'm telling you strict, it's not going out. Her mom was like always, you have to study, you have to study, you have to study, you have to get good grades, you have to get in a good college, it's this type of, she had her daughter not really have fun, even in her high school experience. And of course, we grew up together. And once she went to college, we were in the same college at one point, and she rebelled tremendously. When I'm telling you she rebelled, she had her good grades. She was in a really good college. She had her good grades. But of course, once you're in college, you have a certain independence. So she was going out, having fun, getting home late, and her mom was always so pissed off. But of course, her dad was like always talking to to her mom and saying like, that's normal, she needs to have a life, she's been studying all her life, she's good, she's doing good grades. So her mom has been a little bit more like, she has bended a little bit more her way of how she is. And of course, my friend, she's an only child, so she really, once you're an only child, your parents tend to overprotect you more. I have this other friend that her parents are really trustworthy with her, and she goes out, she does her thing, she comes back. But of course, her parents are strict in a way that they always put a curfew on her. Even when we were in college, it was like, hey, we have to go because my parents told me that to be at home at 1, or my parents told me to be at home at 12. So it was like, oh, okay, no worries. So she did have a certain independence, but at the same time, she didn't. And the way that she is with her parents now, and the way that she has always been with her parents, I can say to you that she lived in a really stable home because she is so lovable. She, in her relationship, she recently broke up, but in her relationship, it was a 3-year, 4-year relationship, and they always had good communication. They had a really good understanding of each other. But of course, time has passed and they had to do the long distance relationship. So it really didn't work out that well, especially because of him. Long distance relationship, that's another thing. My point is that my friend, she, of course, since she lived in a stable home, she has had stable relationships. That's what I'm trying to say. My other friend, that her parents are so strict, she, of course, when she starts to date, she doesn't really find somebody that will, how do I say this? Somebody that steps into her level. So it's really difficult for her to find a relationship. Plus, she is like her mom, really strict and really wants to take control of everything. That's a problem, of course. My ex, I can say that he has abandonment issues, and he, of course, we broke up, and it's been really difficult for him to really not stop talking to me, and which is fine, because for me at this point, what I think is he was a important person in my life, so it's always good to have that there, but at the same time it becomes toxic, and I know that. Anyways, the point that I want to talk about him is just like, he treats his mom like a princess. She helps her, she does everything, but at the same time, whatever he wants to do, he will do it, and he doesn't care if her mom says no, his mom says no or not. He just does it, and that's it. And of course, I'm saying that he has abandonment issues because of the fact that it's really hard for him to say goodbye, and he really doesn't even see his father. So it's a complicated situation with him. And of course, I have this other friend. Yeah, I have a lot of friends. I understand. I have this other friend that his parents treat each other with respect. They always communicate. They're always, when you see that relationship, you will think like, oh wow, this is like the perfect relationship. Of course, they have had their problems, and it's not really a perfect relationship, but my friend, how he treats everybody, doesn't have to be his partner. My friend treats everybody with respect, communicates communicates so much. When we talk, he's always, hey, how are you? How are you doing? How are you feeling? He cares, or at least he shows that he cares. And of course, now I'm talking about me and my experience. My parents weren't really, they tried their best. My parents just tried their best. And of course, I was dating somebody that once, they never met my parents, but once, let's say, like if I was talking to him on the phone and my dad or my mom told me something, or I was complaining about something that my parents did, he literally told me, like, I don't know why you let your parents treat you the way that they treat you. And even one of my exes told me that I was a really screwed up person because of how my parents treated me, or like how I am. And that one did affect me a lot, because of course when somebody that you are dating tells you that you are really screwed up, you're like, then why are you dating me then? And so it's the way that our parents treat us, either in our childhood or in an adult life, it affects our relationships with our friends, with our families, with our partners. And of course, our partners, what I'm trying to say is that somebody from the outside will see things that you really think it's normal, and sometimes it's not. So of course, when you start to realizing these things, you either don't want to be like your parents and you don't want to repeat that habit of what they're doing to you. And of course, you try to look for help. And our parents play a really big role on how we act in our lives, the mistakes that we have made, and the decision as well, because of how they raised us. Of course, I'm not blaming them that what you did is their fault. No. It's the way of like how they treated you or raised you, basically. It's the way that you are now. And again, I'm not blaming them. It sounds like I am, but I'm really not. People will be positive and others will be toxic. We all have our issues. And as I said, we all have our issues, as I said, but that doesn't mean that we need to stay like that forever. If we want, we can change and even break that cycle for our children's future and for your future as well. Up next, I'll be talking about my experiences with putting boundaries with my parents, and I'll be telling you my friends' experiences as well.
The GSMC Sex Podcast is a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet. Download the GSMC Sex Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you can find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. As I said in the last segment, I'm going to talk about my experiences and my friends' experiences by setting boundaries with our parents when it comes to our relationships. But first, I want to say that when parents are involved in a relationship, it's stressful because your parents or your partner's parents can bring drama into your relationship. Let's say your parents are always in your life. Like if they show up uninvited, or they try to give you an opinion on where you live, or they say your boyfriend needs to do this to the door, or your wife is not cleaning clothes every Saturday, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. You need to put boundaries and fast, because you and your partner will do things the way you feel comfortable. Your parents think that you're going to do things their way, when in reality, you and your partner are going to start creating a new way of doing things and things that you feel happy with. And your parents will not like that, because of course, all of us as humans, we do our things our own way. You need to tell them that you appreciate their point of view, but that you need to do things your way. This is going to sound mean. But if your partner is too close with their parents, they do everything for them because they're either a mama's boy or a daddy's girl, or you are the mama's boy or the daddy's girl. It can cause problems because their parents do everything for them or for you. Either if it's helping you get a new house, or they help you in a financial problems, this can have strings attached to it. Not only parents think that because they help you in some way or in something, they can give an opinion or do whatever they want in your life. If your parents help you in everything and you are very dependent on them, and you are depending on them too much, you need to learn how to do things your way. You need to do things yourself, and your partner and you need to become more independent. What I'm trying to say is that if your parents help you to get something out of it, don't accept their help. They need to understand that you're a grown-up, that you need to be independent. Of course, there's nothing wrong on getting your parents' help, but you need to understand, and your partner needs to understand, that if you do get this help from them, then you need to suck it up if they give an opinion on something. Your parents and your in-laws are going to be critical of your lifestyle, either how you raise your children, about your partner, how you clean, how you do things, etc. Explain to them that those comments upset you, and that you need to tell them to stop. The choices that you have made, they need to respect it, and you have to tell them as well that you do appreciate their concern, but that they need to respect the choices that you and your partner have made. If your parents didn't give you the best example in the world, and they were toxic and narcissistic, the point is that you can't fix the past, nor your parents. Just try hard not to follow the same path as them. And if your parents affect your relationship, then try to keep your distance. I know that sounds harsh, but it will help you. Of course, when you're in a relationship, it's a little bit difficult to spend time with your parents, especially in important holidays, because you have another family now. Some parents will get jealous. Some parents are going to get mad because you're not going to either the Christmas party or, somebody's christening because you had other plans, or a wedding. So you and your partner need to make a plan and try to split your time in both houses. Let's say if your mom wants you to go to something, and then your husband or your boyfriend wants you to go to a wedding with them, then you need to talk to your mom and tell her, hey mom, I can't do this. I already had this plans. Can we do it another day, or can they change it? Try to explain to your parents that unfortunately you need to obviously make time for other people, and it's not just them in the picture now. If your parents try to guilt you into it, you need to explain to them that you're trying your best, and that they need to accept the fact that you're all grown up, and that you're going to be more independent and do your own thing with your partner, and that they need to understand that and be more supportive. Of course, I gave that little resume, quote unquote, but now talking about my experiences, at least close to me, my mom and my dad, I can say that one of the problems that they had was communication, and that my mom, at least for my point of view, my mom, every time she needed advice, she went to her dad, my grandfather. So when she had any problems or she needed to do something, she quickly went to her parents. And of course, my dad did the exact same thing, but not that much. So them doing that, of course, let's say it was something, I'm going to give you this example. When I was little, my dad wanted to go to Disney. So my dad, set the plans with my mom, and it was like, oh, hey, let's go to Disney. Gloriann, she's little, she'll enjoy it. Let's go. So my mom, what she did, I don't know why, but she went to my grandfather and asked him like, oh yeah, like he wants to go to Disney. He wants to take Gloriann to Disney. What do I do? Like, I don't know, where can we stay, blah, blah. Like, she started to make, plans, but at the same time, she didn't want to go, really. So, the point is, we never went to Disney. And it's all because my mom, asked everybody and really didn't have that discussion with the person that she was supposed to have this discussion, that it was with my dad. Just like my dad, sometimes he made decisions without consulting my mom. And it caused problems because, again, the communication wasn't there between them. And now that I'm older, I'm in my late 20s, I have friends that are single. I have friends that that are married, and I have friends that are in a relationship. Now I'm going to talk about one of my two friends that they're married, and they have a good communication, but her parents, they always try to be really opinionated on the things that they do with their life, with their kids, with their house, with the car, whichever. I remember that my friend, she needed a new car, and they were looking for new cars, and the whole drama and the whole deal about the cars, right? So she goes to the car dealership. She liked this car, and her stepfather was helping her, and of course she was looking and all that, and so she called her dad, he called her husband, and she was trying to see what was the best thing for her. And of course her father told her, like, hey, you have to think about that. You want to move, you want to do this, you want to do that. And of course, like, a car payment is a really big responsibility. You need to take things in consideration. Her dad was really supportive, but then her mom, when she went and asked her mom, her parents are divorced, sorry. And so when she went and asked her mom, her stepfather started like giving opinions, and her husband, my friend, was there, and he got really pissed off because it's like, and said, you know what, I thank you for the advice, but I'm gonna end up doing what I want, and of course she wants a new car, and this is what we're gonna do. So they, of course, have had some problems because of that. Her parents want to be really opinionated, but at the same time, she puts boundaries, of course, but her parents don't really care about them. So sometimes that's why I'm saying, like, if your parents aren't really supportive about things and they're really critical about it, you need to take your distance. I have another friend that they're boyfriend and girlfriend, and his girlfriend, I can say, her mom is in everything. When I'm telling you everything, her mom, if they have a discussion, her mom is in the discussion. If they go out, her mom is there. If she goes to visit, I don't know, do something, her mom is always there. So her mom is always with her. And of course, my friend, he doesn't really say anything. We haven't really talked about the topic, but I can say that it's not really a healthy relationship, because I remember one time they were having a discussion between him and her mom came in and just, bam, like, criticized him, did a lot of things. And of course, his girlfriend did not stop her mom. Like, me personally, I would have stopped my mom and said, hey, this is between him and I, please, stand away. So of course, she needs to put some boundaries, especially if they want to move in together. They have to put some boundaries. And in another experience, this is one of my family members, they did all the family parties in their house, and everybody went. It's like, we don't want to do the cleaning, we don't want to do the cooking, so we'll go there. And of course, she did the parties because she likes hosting in her house. She likes doing all this type of fun things. So I remember that one time, my parents and I, we went to my dad's part of the family, and oh my god, like, she got really upset because we didn't win. And of course, it was the holiday, so it was a lot of stress and a lot of drama. She, of course, with her kids, the exact same thing. Like, let's say they had, her kids had another party, or they were in a relationship and they needed to go to somebody's house, their partner's parents' house. She got really upset as well, because it's like, oh, it's Christmas, or it's Thanksgiving, it's time to spend with family, with other people, blah blah, like, invite them here. And she always wanted to have people in her house, to be honest. But again, those are the type of people that you need to separate yourself to, or just talk to them, have a conversation with them and say, hey, this is the deal. We need to do this, we need to do that. Like, we need to make this clear so nothing else happens, or no drama. So the reality is that in life, you're the one that needs to decide what you want to do. either live in peace and not be a toxic person and have less drama in your life, and that's what you need to work on, because every relationship is hard. Either it's with your parents or your romantic partner or your friends or family members. You need to take control about the situation and you need to set boundaries. I understand that sometimes it's hard because you don't want to disrespect your partner or your parents or your family member, but at the same time, you need to be by your partner's side when they're right, and take their feelings in consideration. Another thing that I want to say is that depending on how much attention and support your parents gave you, you will be drawn to different partners. Either you're going to be drawn to a narcissistic. If your parents were narcissistic, you're going to be attracted to an abusive person. You're going to be attracted to a person that is really caring. That's why in every relationship at the beginning, you need to be focused on those red flags. If you have unresolved issues or emotions, it's going to affect your relationship as well. What I mean is that your childhood can affect your romantic relationships, because again, we have our mommy and daddy issues. Those issues can be either abandonment issues, fear of being unlovable, people pleasing, or expecting too much or too little. You need to control this and not let your emotions get to you, and not let your parents' relationship affect you in your future, and try to break that bad habit. Our parents try to do their best they can, and of course you need to see their past to understand them as well. Maybe their parents were like that and they turned into their parents. However they were treated as a kid, or the things that their parents did affects them, and that affects you. So that's why you have to break this bad habit. Up next, I'll be talking about how to break those habits.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be, visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Alrighty, welcome back. As you know, I've been talking about how your relationship with your parents affect your love life. Us human beings, because of the way that we are raised, we comprehend things in life. That's what makes us unique. So, a little resume of what I've said. Let's say your parents had the perfect marriage. They talked to each other with respect. They made the right decisions and always were working as a team. You are seeing this type of relationship all your life. And once you start dating or have your own relationship, you have this high standards and you see and you want what your parents had or have. And as I said before, our parents are our role models, and we either want what they have or just don't want to turn into them. We imitate our parents in the way we talk and the way we react and even resolve issues. Basically, we mimic their behavior. I read on an article that it can often be hard to distinguish between which habits are useful and which are less so. As our parents are our primary source of information for a long time, this behavior can simply seem to be the way things are done. End of the quote. We try to do the opposite of our parents because maybe of what our parents did to us. Maybe they brought you unhappiness and you try to do things different than what they did or what they did in your house or how they treated you as well. You may want your kids to have a better childhood than you. You tend to correct that negativity that was in your childhood. Again, as I read in this article, it says this can be an effective way of trying to correct what we might see as a deficiency in the model of our parents created, allowing us to break out from the cycle that seems to create so much dissatisfaction and hardship. Indeed, learning to differentiate the positive and the negative influences of our upbringing and decide which of those we want to go forward with can be an important part of growing up. End quote. If you want to do the exact opposite of your parents, you may try hard enough that you find yourself overcompensating. If you do want to break that cycle of being like your parents, it's going to be hard because subconsciously we do what they do because it's something that is with us. We either accept that we have turned into our parents or we try to escape it. The reality is that it's difficult to escape it because it has been a really big influence on us, and that may sometimes be helpful or not. That's why I say if you start to notice, you can change that. Let's say like this. You have your partner and you have a discussion between the two of you, and then you blast off yelling and just not talking things through. And then when you're in a better mood, they tell you complain about your dad, but you did the exact same thing as he did. Of course, you're going to be in denial at first, but then you will see that you really did something that your dad did or your mom. If you want to make a change, I know I'm repeating myself now, but talk to a therapist or a professional. Your partner can even go with you to therapy. Talking to your partner, you're going to start realizing that you are doing things that you didn't even notice. And sometimes you're going to even notice that the things that you complain about your parents are the same things that you're doing. Even your children can say to you something and you're like, oh my God, I'm turning into my mother, or oh my God, I'm turning into my dad. Sometimes, of course, when you notice this, it gives you a chance to work on it and find new ways to resolve your issues. And a couple of articles that I read for this podcast, the most that called my attention was the one from Brights. It's basically talking about the relationship that we have with our parents and how to break bad habits from our parents, aka their bad habits, and basically says that a personal change once you start with self-awareness. And I quote, start to identify where patterns of communication, thoughts, and feelings originate. Reflect on your childhood and try to remember the patterns you had in interacting with your parents. This was said by Dr. Gloriann. She suggests to ask yourself questions like your adult voice of what you think and believe, or does it come from somewhere or someone else? Another advice that Dr. Gloriann says that there are four basically, and I'll gonna start quoting the reading. Read books by psychological research and Gloriann John Gottman to learn about the different patterns that lead to positive relationship outcomes and those that lead to negative relationship outcomes. It's basically to read about healthy ways to manage conflict and to connect better with your partner emotionally and even with your parents. And the second we have, and then again I start quoting, journal and increase your self-awareness of your thoughts, feelings, and behavior in your relationship. Compare what you are noticing with the way your parents interacted with you and interact with each other. End quote. If there was something missing with your parent and your parents' relationship, like the lack of support or emotion, try to change that in your relationship, either with your kids if you have kids or with your partner. And third, and I quote again, work on trying out new ways of being in your current relationship. Dr. Gottman outlines specific behaviors you can work in your relationship, such as asking more in-depth questions, turning toward your partner when she or he makes attempts to connect with you, and expressing yourself assertively when you feel hurt. End quote. It's basically to try something new and just go with it. And in fourth, finally, we have, if you continue to find it difficult to break these patterns, therapy may be necessary. End quote. Starting end quote. This is because a therapist can help you identify those patterns and explore what you don't know yet. If your parents affected you in a big way, then this can help you change and not turn into them. Parents try, of course, as I've said many times, parents try to do their best they can, and sometimes they have their issues as well that they really haven't dealt with because they don't want to. And yes, they can hurt us and destroy our adulthood because they are basically repeating the pattern, and we're repeating that as well. Then another thing that our parents can affect our relationship is when they start to being anything and make every decision in your relationship, even cross the line. Some people let their parents influence their relationship. Even though it's good to have a great parent relationship, you can let them have an involvement in your relationship. It can cause you tension and problems in your relationship. I talked about this a little bit in the experiences in the last segment. Now I'm gonna go more into it. When you're in a relationship, you tend to get along with your partner's parents or family members. It's always best to be in good terms with them because, again, you'll see them a lot when you're in a relationship. You should separate what is your parents, your relationship with your parents, and your relationship with your partner. We must also focus on intimate relationship for the future that have its own category and should not be meddled with your familiar influences. Ways not to let your relationship with your parents affect the one that you have with your partner. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't always defend your parents' behavior to your partner, because if your partner crossed the line, you need to understand that if your parents did something and your partner found it rude or unnecessary, you have to put boundaries with your parents. And of course, you need to tell your partner as well, like, hey, this is how they are. You need to start like sucking it up. Don't try to put a wedge over your partner's parents. And if you're the partner, don't complain too much about your in-laws, because at the end of the day, your in-laws made your partner. And if you really think about it, you're complaining about your partner as well, because he is 50-50 of your mother-in-law and father-in-law. Don't think that your in-laws are always attacking you when they're telling you something. Sometimes they will tell you something just to help you, and they think they're saying it the really nice way, but then you take it as a criticism. Really don't think about it that way. That's why you need to be polite to them and just do you. Let's say they said something to you, you can just ignore them. It's important to set boundaries, and if you need to tell your parents to back off, then you do that. Because sometimes, again, even though you want to respect your parents, they have to respect you as well. It goes both ways. Of course, our parents have been there for us, but as I said, you need to put boundaries, and especially when it comes to decisions and planning, that's between you and your partner, and they can really say anything about it. Your parents will always say something, there's no doubt on that, but make it clear to them they need to respect that decision that you made with your partner. Don't make your partner go to family events. Maybe they're tired or they need to work. Just don't, or maybe they just don't like your family members, because that happens, either because the way they treat them or they treat you and they don't want to see that. Remember that sometimes we are used to the way our family treats us, and maybe someone else from the outside doesn't like it and they feel uncomfortable. Don't force them to come into the event or make them feel guilty. This one is very important, and it's partner for advice, not your parents. Let's say you have to make a very important decision. You need to talk to your partner first. The majority of the time, your partner will feel disrespected if you don't ask for their advice first. I understand that our parents are important, but again, you're trying to make a family with your partner, so you have to take them in consideration. Of course, it depends on the situation as well, because let's say your dad knows a lot about cars and you want to buy a new car, then their advice can be helpful. But if the advice is about moving to another place, then you need to talk to your partner first. Of course, you need to consult your partner before making plans as well. If you're spending a day with your parents, don't let their negativity ruin your life, because sometimes parents can do that to you. Just like don't let the drama get to you. If your parents or partner is making you choose sides, talk to them and make things clear for the both of them, and just tell them that you're not getting in the middle of it, or if you are getting into the middle of it, you will be honest and say, hey, you're wrong, or hey, they're right. Let's say you had a back discussion because you saw that he or she was texting an ex. That's that they were talking to someone new, or that they were talking to someone new and they're being secretive. Don't tell your parents, because then they might get involved and it will be so much worse. And we don't want that. I know that that's the dramatic example, but just try to keep them less involved. Our parents sometimes can be really judgmental and give opinions in everything, but try to keep your distance. Once you move from your parents' house, either because you got married or you just want to be independent or you moved in with your partner, parents feel that empty nest, or they just start to miss you and they call you, they want to make plans, or they just want to talk. Don't let them guilt you in prioritizing them, because again, you're independent now and you have to make your own decisions and your own thing. This can cause a lot of anxiety in your relationship, in your work, and even in your personal life. Parents, of course, want what's best for their kids, and they will help us in everything that we ask them to. I do understand that some parents are not like that, but again, just try to do what you think is best, and if you want, try to make that communication between your parents or your relationship between your parents better. When you're in a relationship and your parents want to be critical and opinionated, you need to set boundaries and put your partner's feelings first. As I said, you will find this more helpful in your relationship. And with that, I can say that I finished that topic about how our parents affect our relationship. Up next, I'll be talking about how to tell if you're in a situationship.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Alrighty, so finally, let's talk about being in a situationship with someone. Let's say it like this. Because of a global pandemic, you have been talking to someone, but really haven't had the chance of defining the relationship because you guys don't see each other that much because, again, we're in a global pandemic, or you just don't have time because either school, work, family, and again, quarantine. A situationship can be that you guys are doing everything as a couple, but really you guys don't have the commitment of each other. A situationship can be that you guys are talking and doing everything as a couple, but really you guys don't have the commitment of each other. It's frustrating and confusing because you don't really know if you're a couple or not. It's basically that things are in the air and you guys haven't talked about it, and it can be beneficial for one and hurtful for another one because let's say that you are thinking that you guys have a relationship or like you guys are talking to each other and you start getting feelings for this person, and of course the other person is just like not really thinking about that. So in the situationship, it's more about one person having control and making decisions, meanwhile the other goes along with it. You may say or start to think, meanwhile you're listening to this, well, that's like a friends with benefits. But there's a difference. And that is that in a friends with benefits, you want someone to fool around and you choose one of your friends or somebody that you met either in social media or they're a friend of a friend. And what I'm trying to say is that if you're both mature, you and your friend have things clear, you talked about it and you said, hey, I'm not really looking for a relationship, I just want somebody to fool around. And it's that, only to fool around, something casual. There isn't going to be nothing serious. It's only to hook up and you just want to keep it fun and casual without having any feelings in the future or turning into a relationship or having that drama or talk about, oh, what are we? Plus, in the friends with benefits, you don't talk about anything important. It's only to have sex when you want to, if you're bored, if you're in a party, if you guys are in the same class and you're like, hey, let's skip class, something like that. A situationship is more about you are dating because you see each other and you have met their friends and vice versa. Plus, you have talked about personal problems and family drama. It's more about you just haven't defined what the relationship is or what is going to be in the future. You may be thinking, okay, the situationship is a relationship then. It's an exclusive relationship. Well, not really. In a relationship, you see your partner almost every day and you guys talk every day and communicate your feelings, you share your interests, your hobbies, and goals. If you are in a relationship, your partner helps you when you have a problem and they invite you to family dinners, trips, and parties. And then hang out with their friends as well. And they meet your friends and you meet everybody in their lives. In a relationship, you don't really guess what you guys are because you know that you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend that you will have a future together if everything goes smoothly, obviously. In the situationship, again, you both haven't talked and asked yourself, what are we or what's going on? Are we friends with benefits? Is it going to turn into a relationship or what? Because let's say you don't see each other often, but you try to talk to them and they either ignore you and they tell you like, no, I was really busy, I'm sorry, or they don't really tell you what's going on in their day and they don't put you as a priority. It's more they talk to you when they have time, plus they give you little hints about their families, but you guys don't really have that conversation about his or her family, or he or she doesn't invite you to parties, but you guys talked about it. And it's those types of things. Of course, if you want to define the relationship, you need to put your foot down and put your big pants on and ask them, because you really can't keep wasting your time with someone who is just talking to you when they have time or when they're bored. The lack of communication is part of the qualities of a situationship. Yes, what I'm trying to say is that you need to communicate with this human and ask them, do you want to be with me or not? Because honesty is the best policy. And you can ask this in different ways, really. Like, do you see our situation being more? Or do you want a relationship or just have fun? Or, of course, the typical question, what are we? If you want someone, the best way to not let a situationship happen is talking to them straight from the beginning and telling them, hey, I'm looking for a serious relationship because I'm tired of messing around with people. Or you can go the other way. I really don't want something serious. I just want to have fun and fool around with you. I don't want feelings involved, and I don't want to get you hurt or me hurt. Then this person will decide if they want to be with you or not. That's the importance of communication. You need things to be clear and there's no inconvenience and no drama. Of course, the problem with this is that someone always is going to catch feelings for another person. Obviously, it's important not to ignore the red flags in any romantic relationship, in any friends with benefits, or in a situationship. You need to be honest with yourself and see the person's behaviors and intention. To be honest, sometimes we do know if a person wants something serious with you or not, because when they talk to you, they ask us like different things about like, how was your day? How are your feelings? How is your dog? How are your parents? How is your work? Etc. They want to continue that conversation because they just like talking to you. They take the time to know you and care about your feelings and your life. In a more casual relationship, they really don't ask. They just text you like, hey, what are you doing today? Or, hey, you want to go out for a drink? Things like that. If you don't feel comfortable when you talk to them, then because they don't really give you an answer, then end things with them, because that means that they don't know what they want. And of course, if you stay there just letting them figure it out, it could be a problem in the future, because you're going to get your feelings hurt because you're thinking this is going to turn into a serious relationship or into an exclusivity relationship when it really isn't. They then talk to other girls, and if you guys are in a relationship, they can cheat on you, and they even don't treat you the way that you deserve. I remember that when I broke up with my second boyfriend, I was hanging out a lot with my friends, and especially one of my best friends from high school. Her and I, we hanged out a lot, and she had a group of friends where she hang out. So every Friday we hang out, every Saturday we went somewhere else, and it went like this for a little while. Well, not for a little while, for like a year. And of course I met her friends, and one of them, I guess he was interested in me. And honestly, I'll be honest, I've never noticed him, because she said to me like, oh yeah, he was hitting on me, and like, he's really cute, blah blah. And so I really didn't care about him. So when he follows me in social media, that he starts to like, when he starts commenting me like in pictures or in something that I tweeted about, we started talking, blah blah, and we started to make a friendship. And of course, I remember that I was hanging out with my friend, and he was there, blah, blah, but he didn't talk to me at all in this hangout, like nothing. So I'm like, okay, well, this is weird. So then when I was leaving, he texted me like, oh, are you really going? And I'm like, yeah, I am. And then I told him like straight up, anyways, why are you asking? You literally ignore me the whole hangout. We were talking all fine, and then this happens. Like, that's not normal. And he was like, no, is that I don't want people to know that I like you, or like, because I don't want a whole drama. And I basically understood, but then and there I said, okay, this guy, he just wants something, he just wants to be friends with benefits. A week passed and I didn't talk to him because, again, I was pretty pissed off of what he told me. So then he called me and he's like, hey, do you want to hang out? And I was making plans already with my friend, and he goes and tells me like, oh, I talked to her and she told me to pick you up. And I'm like, okay, fine. Just pick me up. So when obviously he picks me up, we went to the hangout, we got there together, blah, blah. People didn't really start talking, but they did ask him like, what's going on with you and Gloriann? And he's like, nothing, we're just friends. And I remember that night we stayed up until like 6 a.m. in the morning, just everybody hanging out and having fun. And of course, when I got home, and it was pretty late and my mom was pretty pissed off when I got home, but it was funny because we did had a conversation, him and I, and it was like, hey, I like you, but I don't want anything serious, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, me too. I just got out of a relationship. So we were basically friends with benefits. And it was funny because we were friends with benefits, but at the same time, he talked to me about other girls and other girls he was talking to or like he was interested in and all of these things. And I'm here like, okay, this is a new kind of trust, of communication. So we really had a really good time. And then when I broke up with my third boyfriend and I, when we broke up, this guy, I guess he was interested in me because every time I was in college and I had a long period of time to wait for one of my classes, I went to the library and he was there and he was in my department. Like I was studying architecture at the time. So he went to the library of architecture because it was more quiet. Everybody, it was a whole thing. So I guess he starts to ask around like, who is she, blah, blah. And then he follows me on social media. And I honestly didn't recognize him. When I see that somebody follow me, I'm like, oh, okay, who is this person? Then I see that we have people in common, so I asked one of my friends and she was like, oh yeah, he's really nice, he's studying medicine, he has things going on, blah blah, like. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I follow him back and I remember that we started talking and it was funny because this guy, he invited me out, and once he invited me out, he's like, hey, like, I think you're pretty, this and that, but I'm studying medicine and I need to focus on this, but I would like to maybe in the future have a relationship with you. And I was like looking at him, okay. And I told him like, I just got out of a relationship, and he's like, this is the whole thing. Let's be friends with benefits. And I'm like, okay. It was funny because of course I give him credit. He talked to me really clear at the beginning, and of course getting to know him better and all this and that, it was like, okay, it really isn't gonna work out. But we still have a relationship, we still have a friendship, and it's hilarious because every time I go to Puerto Rico, he texts me like, hey, you're still single, right? So we see each other and it's just funny, really. I've talked about this in a couple of podcasts. The Tinder guy, him and I, obviously, we had a situationship because we didn't talk things at the beginning. We met in one of the dating apps, and when it's a dating app, it's more about, fooling around. But since we were in a global pandemic, we talked about every different things. But when it came to meet each other, we didn't really see each other, but we basically did almost everything. And the point is that when it went to defining the relationship, he backed up real quickly and said like, no, I don't want any long distance relationship. Like, I'm going back to Georgia. I already did this. I don't want to do it anymore. Like, yeah, you're a really great girl, and we have a lot of things in common, but I don't want this. And of course, we ended things because we wanted different things. And I'll be honest, having a relationship or talking to somebody or just getting to know a person, it's really stressful because you may think something or you may start feeling something, and then the other person is really just looking for a friendship or is looking for something else. I just want to say that any kind of relationship works when you two communicate and are in the same page. That's what you need to focus on when you're talking to somebody. And guys, that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast and that you're staying safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Relationship Podcast brought you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.